All right, thanks for joining us to talk about PLCs. Today we're going to run through a couple different important details regarding the PLC. First, we're going to start by covering the basic parameters. That's an effective learning for all our PLCs. So depending on the age of your dryer is going to depend on the programming. We have some dryers that since 2011 through 2016 have an original program. From 2016, at the end of 2016 through 2023, we had a second revision to that programming, and since January of 2024 is the current and existing programming. So one way that you're going to be able to determine what that looks like is if you press the middle two buttons, your PLC's display is going to either show you nothing, it's going to show you something that says horsepower of the program. And now on this new iteration, it essentially is telling us it's a 2-signal, 2-minute on-off regen cycle, auxiliary pause. And what that means is that this is a 2-tower dryer running on a 2-minute cycle time. So every 2 minutes it's going to cycle. So that's the first thing that we want to understand. The second thing is, now that we know that this is the correct program, so if this was an older version, it might say 10 horsepower program selected, which would be this 2-tower dryer that this PLC is currently mounted on. To explain a little bit about the control itself, obviously it has the date and time that you can see. It tells us that it's in a run mode. We were to stop the program, which I will show you later. That will say stop there. These 4 numbers down below, 1, 2, 3, 4, that are close together, those are the output signals that are going on. So right now we are sending an output signal to tower 1, which would be our left tower. And that would be putting the left tower into regeneration, and the right tower would be doing the drying of that. As you can see, it just cycled over, so we're at that 2-minute period. It moved over. Now it's sending a signal to tower 2, which would be the right tower. And so if you're ever troubleshooting with us, we're going to be asking where are the signals at, things like that. The very low numbers, these are determining digital and analog inputs. So the top numbers are going to be digital inputs, and the bottom numbers will be analog inputs. And so the PLC says it's in a run mode, and we also know that it's in a run mode because you see those little spinny dots down below. That tells us that it is in a program and it is cycling and reading the program. So one of the things that we want to talk about is accessing the parameters. So more often than not, we're going to tell you to hit the menu button, go down to run stop until it's flashing, hit the menu OK button, stop the program, we want to answer yes. So now you can see we've got stop is on the PLC, as well as none of the outputs are highlighted underneath that date code. And as you can see, the 2 dots down below, they're now no longer spinning. So now that we're in the stop mode, we go in, we can access the parameters. Parameters is flashing. We hit the menu OK button again. And to understand what the parameter screen looks like is the R00B001. The important number is the flashing 001. That B standing for block. It basically is like the block. So block 1 has a value. So on the new programs, we have 8 different inputs for block 1, which control our programming or cycle designation for the dryer. So on our 2-tower, 3-tower, 4-tower, and some of our larger rail systems and stuff, they're going to use some different programming. And the current programming also allows us to have a pause feature or just an immediate or a complete the drying cycle feature before it pauses the entire operation of drying. And what that does is provides energy efficiency for an air system if the dryer's plumbed between the compressor and the receiver tank, or if we have a dryer tied into a piece of equipment And if that equipment's not running, the dryer doesn't necessarily have to be drying air because it will constantly sweep air if we don't have it in some form of pause mode. So to really maximize energy efficiency, if there's a signal available that we can access on the equipment or off the compressor to send to this PLC, we then can make this dryer even more energy efficient. So right now, block 1 is showing a C value of plus 0005, and plus 005 is a program designation for 2 signal, 2-minute on-off regen cycle, auxiliary signal pause, and then it's the program version 6.1. So I want to change the constant. Let's just say we're going from a 10 horsepower and we upgrade this dryer to a 20 horsepower system. So we're going to want to change that C value from plus 0005 to plus 007. So we do that by hitting the right arrow over until the constant value is flashing. Then we would hit the up arrow until it reads 7 for the instructions that you would get from us. And then you would hit OK. And then it's going to ask you to confirm the changes. You're going to then say yes. And then when it's flashing again, we get back to the main screen here, and we want to go down to run stop, hit menu OK. Now, these are, I believe, Latin terms. So with non-volat any, no non-volat any, and then no. So right now it's saying run program. So we have the option to run that program. And if we run that program right now and I hit with non-volat any, what that's going to do is that's actually going to reset all of the values. So the program that's in this PLC has a timer to tell you when to replace the coalescing element. And so when it comes to that, we don't always want to reset all those values. Maybe you changed it 5 months ago and now it won't flash up its little warning on the display to tell you to change it. So more often than not, we are going to tell you to hit the down arrow until no non-volat any is flashing and hit OK. Now the program is started. We did not reset any of the what are called latch values inside or the timers. So now what we are doing, you can see that we now have 2 outputs showing. So on a 4-tower system, 20 horsepower, we have 2 towers drying and we have 2 towers in regeneration mode. We can also see that by hitting the middle 2 buttons and it will say 4 signal, 2 minutes on off regen cycle auxiliary signal pause. So what that's telling us is it's still on a 2-minute cycle. So 2 towers will be drying, 2 towers will be regenerating. And then in 2 minutes, 1 and 3 outputs will highlight, 2 and 4 will go into that drying mode. So that's the first thing that we want to talk about when it comes to adjusting the programs for the dryer. And that's just how we can change different things. So we're going to do that again. I'm going to change. I want to get into the parameters, so I hit run stop. I stop the program, yes. Now I hit menu again. Parameters is flashing. I hit OK. Block 1 is flashing. I want to change this back to a 2-tower system, so we're going to hit the arrow down now until it reads plus 0005. I'm going to hit OK. Confirm my changes, yes. So now we're back to block 1. So now what I can do is talk to you about some of the different blocks that are being utilized. So if I move the left arrow over until block 1 is flashing and I hit the arrow up to block 2. Now block 2 has to deal with some of the settings that are going to come in. Some of our dryers are configured with a pressure transducer so that we can pull a signal from a compressor or from some piece of equipment that says it now has air or does it have air. It depends. We're going to be able to change kind of how that cycling works. And that's will be explained in a little bit. But we need to be able to read the value of block 2. So block 2 currently is set at 80 PSI. So if we have a pressure transducer inside the PLC and we pull a signal, what this says is 80 pounds of pressure is that either we're going to turn the dryer on or turn it off when it hits that value. So that's one. Our PLCs are also configured so that we can have multiple inputs regarding pressure. So if I hit the block arrow up to 3, 3 is also another pressure setting. And then when we get to 4 and 5, blocks 4 and 5 determine whether or not and how our dryer acts based on those analog or digital inputs going into the PLC. So block 4 has a C value of all zeros. And when we get up to block 5, it has all zeros across the board. And so what that says is the dryer is to run if there is no signal going into the PLC, which we don't. This system is not hooked up with any kind of digital or analog inputs right now. So as a standard configuration, this dryer is plug and play. We plumb it in, we plug it in, it is going to operate as it's set up. If you add a transducer or a digital signal, we then have to start adjusting blocks 4 and 5 to make those accommodations. So we're going to leave well enough alone. I'm just going to hit the menu OK button. It goes back to the parameters run stop. I'm going to hit the arrow down to run stop, hit OK. Again, we're going to hit the arrow down to no non-volat. We do not want to reset any of the timers or latch values running inside the PLC. I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm back to the main run screen, back to a 2-tower system. And the output 1 is sending a signal to our left tower. Now, as I said, these systems are set up so that we can have digital or analog signals coming into it. On this display PLC, you can't exactly see it, but we are plumbed in to where we have it set up. I'll zoom out real quick here. So on the side of this PLC, we have a couple switches up at the top, and those switches simulate our inputs that might be coming from a compressor or from a piece of equipment that we want to utilize for a signal to tell us whether or not we want our dryer running. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to walk through how that works. So if we're functioning off of a digital signal, that would be some sort of dry contact that we're connecting from a piece of equipment, whether it be a CNC machine or a laser or a compressor. As long as we know that no air is going to be pulled through the dryer for use when those signals are being sent, that is exactly how we maximize the efficiency of the drying systems. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip one of those switches, and you can see the digital input 1 has turned on. And because the PLC received an input, notice that it paused the cycle. So right now this dryer has retracted both of its pistons, and it assumes there is no airflow going through this dryer. This dryer is not regenerating, it's not sweeping air, which means we are not wasting or using any air to regenerate those towers. Now let's just say that signal is coming from a compressor. So the compressor has hit an unload mode, and when it has unloaded, it sends a signal. We use a dry contact that closed, and it's now allowing us to complete the 12-volt loop. And this PLC is receiving a 12-volt signal that says the compressor is in a unloaded state. It is not manufacturing air. So we don't need to keep having the dryer cycle back and forth. That could be 1 minute, it could be 2, it could be 5. Let's just say after a period of time, the compressor then has a demand to generate air, and it turns on, which then opens the dry contact in its control. It then pulls the signal away, and notice that the PLC is now putting the dryer into a run mode in order to dry air that is going downstream for its application. Whether it's dry contacts or pressure transducers, these signals all work on the same feature. So when we start talking about parameters 4 and 5, that's really what the understanding of how some of those controls work is really important. So let's just assume that this dry contact or this pressure transducer that is coming into this turns on when the compressor is loaded. So if that's the case, we want this dryer to be running when that input is turned on. So right now it's not running because parameter 4 and 5 are set at zeros. So what we're going to do to turn this on when this input signal is coming in is we need to change that parameter. So we will go down and we will stop the program. And then following the instructions, you would then go into the parameters. We will then scroll the block value, and we want to go to block 4. And so what we're going to do is we're going to hit the right arrow over and change that constant value to a plus 00001. We're going to confirm that change. And as it's still flashing, we hit the menu button again. We get to run stop. Again, we don't want to reset any of the timers, so no non-volat. Hit OK. Now, with that digital input or that analog input, turning the dryer is running. So the compressor's running, it's sending the signal to the PLC. Now that compressor goes into an unload mode or it shuts off in the case of like a piston compressor, and that transducer reads pressure below 80 psi, that signal would go away. Now when that signal goes away, now you can see that the PLC program has stopped the dryer from regenerating air. Now these PLCs are configured to allow a lot of versatility. So we can receive multiple inputs. We might have 2 compressors. We might have this dryer between 2 pieces of equipment. And those pieces of equipment, when they are going to use compressed air for some valve actuation or whatever it is, we're able to utilize some dry contact or some signal from that equipment. We can use up to 2 inputs coming into this for this programming. So when that's the case, you'll see that we now have multiple inputs. So configured the way that we currently have it, with block 4 in the parameters reading 1 and block 5 being at 0, whenever we receive an input signal from one of the 2 contacts, the program's to run. If we take that signal away, the program will stop. Now there are some very unique instances in programming with this that you may turn around and say, hey, we have multiple inputs, and so one is loaded, sending a signal when it's loaded, and one isn't sending a signal when it's loaded. So one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to go into the programming. We're going to hit run stop. We're going to stop the program. Then we want to get into the parameters, and we want to go up to block 5. Now, if we have block 4 and 5 at a constant value of plus 0001, and we confirm that change, we want to go back into the run program. Again, don't reset any of the timers or values. Now you see we have one input coming to input 2 is highlighted. If we take input 2 away, the program still runs because it's receiving a different signal from input 1. Input 1 says run the program if no signal. We are going to now take a look at how you can upgrade the program. So if you have some of the older programming out there, you can contact Tsunami Compressed Air Solution at 800-782-5752. Talk to our inside technical sales specialist and request that a new program be sent out so that you can upgrade your dryer program to the latest version. What will happen is you can then get a program sent to you on what's called a dongle, or it's basically a memory stick for these PLCs. So when that's the case, what you can do is we want to go in, we'll stop the program. We want to confirm that we've stopped it. When you receive your dongle, now there is a fee for receiving this dongle. You pay for all the shipping, and then what'll happen is once you return the dongle back to Tsunami Compressed Air Solutions, we then will credit the deposit that's applied to the dongle, or you can just keep it. That I believe it's like $75. But then that way you're paying for the shipping to and back, to and fro to get this back to us. So once we stop that program, we insert the memory, we go into parameters, run configuration. Now you see what's called transfer. Normally that wouldn't be there. So we would scroll down to transfer. It gives us that option. We hit OK. Now here it's important to understand, you can't upload a program to that memory stick. We don't recommend that. If you do that, you'll be sending this back to us for us to reprogram the dongle. So what you want to do is you want to hit you don't want to leave Zelio to memory. You want to hit the down arrow and have memory to Zelio. This is Zelio. The PLC model is Zelio. So we want to go memory to Zelio and hit OK. You can see it's transferring. Now it says transfer OK. At this point, we can pull the memory stick out, put the cover back in. We can get back in to the main screen. We would then go down to run stop. We want to, now since we've uploaded a new program, it doesn't really matter, but it's just good habit to get into. Don't reset any of the timers or latch values. And now, as you can see, it always is going to default to a 10 horsepower system. And what this one is, this is program 1. And what program 1 says is that even if you receive a signal from a digital input, and it's going to tell this PLC to stop running, the dryer is going to complete its drying cycle. So it's going to go from tower 1, it's going to regenerate tower 2, and then when it shifts back to tower 1, at that point, it will then pause the dryer. So in some applications, that's the process that we want to utilize. And so when that's the case, that's what that programming would do. So if I leave this on for about another 3.5 minutes, you will see that it goes from tower 1 to tower 2, back to tower 1, but then it will pause. And then when it receives, or when that signal goes away, then it would start up the program all over again. If we want to change that, again, we want to get into run stop our program. Yes, we do want to stop it. We want to get back to our parameters. Block 1C is now at a constant value of plus 0001. We now want to change that to 5 because we want this, when it receives an input, we want it to immediately pause the drying cycle. And then when that signal is removed, it will immediately pick up where it left off. So now that the constant value is flashing, I hit the arrow up until it gets to program 5. I confirm that change, yes. And now that I'm here, it will bring me back to parameters and run stop. I go to run stop, arrow down to no non-volat, hit OK. And now it's running and operating as though you just took it out of the box and plugged it in. It will always default to program 1 when you reload the memory into the PLC. Thank you for joining. And again, if you have any questions, contact our technical sales specialists at 800-782-5752.